There's a quiet power in what you don't say. Most men never learn this. They think openness is strength, that vulnerability means sharing everything, that authentic living requires constant transparency. And so they talk. They share their plans, their struggles, their past, their strategies. They lay themselves bare, thinking it will create connection, trust, respect. But here's what actually happens. The more you reveal, the more you expose. And exposure without discretion isn't authenticity, it's weakness. Because not everyone deserves to know everything about you. Not everyone who smiles in your face has your best interests at heart. And some information, once shared, becomes ammunition. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire, kept his most private thoughts in journals. He didn't broadcast his struggles, his doubts, his inner work. He understood that there's a difference between being genuine and being unguarded. Genuine means being true to who you are. Unguarded means giving everyone access to everything you are. And one creates strength, while the other creates vulnerability. Epictetus taught, keep silence for the most part, and speak only when you must, and then briefly. Not because silence is dishonesty, but because discretion is wisdom. Because some things are sacred and should be protected. Because loose lips don't just sink ships, they sabotage careers, relationships, and futures. And today, we're going to talk about the 10 things you should never tell anyone about yourself. Not because you're being dishonest, but because you're being strategic. Because you understand that mystery is power, that restraint is strength, that what you keep to yourself is often more valuable than what you share. And if you've been operating like an open book, if you've been sharing everything with everyone, if you've been wondering why people don't respect you the way you thought they would, this might be why. So let's begin. 1. Your next move. Here's the first rule of strategy. Never announce your plans before you execute them. Most men love to talk about what they're going to do. I'm starting a business. I'm going to lose 50 pounds. I'm leaving this job soon. I'm working on something big. And they think this sharing creates accountability, that it makes them more likely to follow through. But it does the opposite, because talking about your plans gives you a false sense of accomplishment. Your brain releases dopamine from the social validation, and suddenly, you feel like you've already done something, when all you've done is talk about it. Psychologically, this is called social reality. When you share your goals, your brain treats the positive response as partial completion, and your motivation drops. Seneca wrote, "Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life." Notice he didn't say, announce to everyone what you're going to do. He said, begin. And beginning means doing, not talking. But there's another reason to keep your plans quiet. People will undermine you. Not always consciously, not always maliciously. But they will. Because your ambition makes them uncomfortable. Your growth reminds them of their stagnation. And so they'll plant seeds of doubt. Are you sure that's a good idea? That sounds really risky. Do you really think you can do that? I knew someone who tried that and failed. And if you're not careful, those seeds take root, and suddenly you're doubting yourself. Not because your plan was bad, but because you let other people's fears contaminate your vision. The wise man moves in silence. He builds before he announces. He executes before he celebrates. And when people finally see what he's accomplished, they don't see the struggle. They just see the result. And that perception? It's powerful. Because now you're not someone who talks about big plans. You're someone who delivers them. There's a saying, real G's move in silence like lasagna. Crude, but accurate. The most dangerous people aren't the ones threatening violence. They're the ones you never saw coming. The same applies to success. The most successful people aren't the ones announcing their moves. They're the ones executing them while everyone else is still talking. So keep your mouth shut about what's coming next. Let your results do the talking. Number 2, your personal philosophy or spiritual beliefs. Here's something most men don't understand. Your deepest beliefs are not up for debate. And the moment you share them openly, you invite that debate. You give people permission to judge, criticize, or dismiss what's most sacred to you. And that's dangerous. Not because your beliefs can't withstand criticism, but because defending them constantly is exhausting and unnecessary. Marcus Aurelius kept his Stoic philosophy private. His meditations were never meant to be published. They were his private journal, his conversations with himself. He understood that wisdom is practiced, not performed. That you don't need to convince anyone else of what you believe. You just need to live it. When you share your spiritual or philosophical beliefs too freely, several things happen. First, people will try to convert you. They'll debate you, challenge you, tell you why their way is better. And even if you're secure in what you believe, these conversations drain your energy. They turn something sacred into something adversarial. Second, people will use your beliefs against you. They'll watch for inconsistency. They'll point out when you fail to live up to your own standards, not because they care about your growth, but because they want to prove you're a hypocrite. Third, you'll feel pressure to perform. Once people know what you believe, you'll start living for their approval, instead of staying true to the philosophy itself. You'll become more concerned with appearing consistent than actually being consistent. Epictetus taught, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." And that's the key. Live your principles so thoroughly that people see them in your actions, without you ever having to say a word. When someone asks about your beliefs, keep it simple. I believe in being a good person. I try to live with integrity. I'm just trying to be better than I was yesterday. That's enough. You don't owe anyone a detailed explanation of your inner world. And the people who truly deserve to know, they'll see it without you having to explain. Your character will speak louder than your words ever could. 3. Your good deeds. Here's a test of character most men fail. Can you do something good without telling anyone? Most can't. They do something charitable, something kind, something generous, and within hours, everyone knows about it. They post it on social media. They mention it casually in conversation. They make sure people see them as generous, as helpful, as good. But here's the truth. The moment you announce your good deeds, you've already collected your reward. The reward isn't the good deed itself anymore. It's the recognition, the praise, the validation. And that cheapens everything. It transforms genuine generosity into performance, authentic kindness into calculated image management. Seneca wrote, "A favor should be kept like a sealed letter," meaning, when you do something good for someone, you don't broadcast it. You don't use it to elevate your status. You do it and you move on, because the value was in the action itself, not in who knows about it. When you announce your good deeds, several things happen. First, you make the recipient uncomfortable. By publicizing what you did for them, you've changed the dynamic. What was a gift now feels like a transaction. What was private now feels performative. And they feel obligated, exposed, possibly even humiliated. Second, you reveal your motivation. If you need people to know you did something good, then you didn't do it because it was good. You did it because you wanted to be seen as good. And everyone can tell the difference, even if they don't say it. Third, you diminish future acts. Once people see that you use generosity for social credit, they'll question every kind thing you do. Is he helping me, or is he helping his image? And that question ruins trust. Carl Jung observed, You are what you do, not what you say you'll do. And the corollary is equally true. You are what you do in private, not what you perform in public. The most powerful men help people and never mention it. They contribute, they serve, they give, and the only people who know are the ones who directly benefited. That's real generosity. That's real character. And it creates a kind of respect that performance never can. Because people sense, even if they can't articulate, that you're someone who does good for its own sake, not for applause. So do your good deeds in private. Help people without announcement. Give without expecting recognition. And let your reputation build itself through the experiences people have with you, not through the stories you tell about yourself. 4. Your income, wealth, or financial situation. Let's talk about money, because this is where most men reveal too much and pay the price. Your financial situation is nobody's business. Not your friends, not your extended family, not your coworkers, nobody. And yet men constantly share this information. They talk about their salary, their investments, their debt. They complain about being broke or brag about being wealthy, and both moves create problems. When you tell people you're struggling financially, they lose respect for you. Consciously or unconsciously, they begin to see you as less capable. They assume you're making poor decisions. They start to treat you differently, with pity or judgment. And some will exploit that knowledge. They'll feel comfortable asking for money, knowing you can't say no without revealing your situation. They'll undervalue your work. They'll negotiate harder. They'll see you as desperate. When you tell people you're doing well financially, they become resentful or predatory. Resentment shows up as subtle comments. Must be nice. Not all of us have that kind of money. Easy for you to say. Predatory behavior shows up as requests. Can you lend me? You should invest in. I have this opportunity. Or just changed expectations about who pays for what. Seneca taught, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. And part of protecting your wealth is not advertising it. The truly wealthy move quietly. They don't need to signal their status. They don't need to show off. They understand that discretion protects assets, and that the moment everyone knows what you have, everyone has an opinion about what you should do with it. Here's the rule. When asked about money, be vague. I'm doing all right. Can't complain. Making it work. That's sufficient. You don't owe anyone details. And the people who push for specifics, they're the exact people you shouldn't tell, because they have an agenda. Maybe they want to borrow from you. Maybe they want to feel superior. Maybe they want to gossip. But none of those reasons serve you. So keep your financial situation private and move through the world without advertising your worth. Because the people who need to know it will see it, and the people who don't need to know it shouldn't have access to that information. Number 5. Your family drama and personal conflicts. Here's a hard truth. Nobody actually cares about your family problems. They'll listen, sure. They'll nod sympathetically. But what they're really doing is collecting information. Information they'll use later to understand you, to judge you, or to gossip about you. When you share family drama, the fights, the dysfunction, the painful history, you're not getting support. You're creating liability. Because people will remember. They'll remember that your father was difficult. They'll remember that your mother was controlling. They'll remember that your siblings don't speak to you. And they'll use that information to construct a narrative about who you are. No wonder he has trust issues. Look at his family. Makes sense he's difficult. You should hear about his childhood. And suddenly, your past becomes your identity. Marcus Aurelius, Despite being the most powerful man in the world, never publicly complained about his family, never aired grievances, never used his position to settle scores. He kept those struggles private and dealt with them internally. Epictetus taught, "What concerns me is not the way things are, but rather the way people think things are." And when you share family drama, you're giving people a way to think about you that may or may not be accurate, but will definitely be limiting. Here's what happens when you overshare. First, people lose respect for you. Not for having problems, everyone has those, but for being unable to handle them privately, for needing to air them publicly. It signals a lack of boundaries, a lack of control. Second, people use it against you. In arguments, in competition, in moments of conflict, they'll bring up what you told them. Well, considering your relationship with your father, your family situation explains a lot. And now you're fighting on two fronts, the current issue and your past. Third, it damages relationships that could have been repaired. Once you've told people about a conflict, even if you later reconcile, those people will remember. They'll treat your family member differently. They'll bring up old issues, and they'll make healing harder. So keep your family issues private. Work through them with a therapist if needed, with a trusted mentor, with your journal, but not with casual friends, not with coworkers, not on social media. Your family dysfunction is not content. It's not entertainment. It's not a conversation starter. It's private, and keeping it that way protects not just you, but everyone involved. Number 6, your exact health issues or medical history. This one is subtle, but important. Your health information should be shared selectively, not hidden entirely, but controlled. Because the moment people know you have a specific health issue, they begin to see you through that lens. You become the guy with anxiety, the guy with back problems, the guy who had surgery, and that label sticks. It affects how people perceive your competence, your reliability, your future potential. When you tell coworkers about health problems, they'll use it against you in subtle ways. They'll question whether you can handle projects. They'll exclude you from opportunities. They'll assume you're fragile, not necessarily out of malice, but out of risk aversion. Let's give this to someone who doesn't have those complications. When you tell friends or acquaintances, they'll bring it up constantly. Every interaction becomes about your condition. How are you feeling? Are you sure you should be doing that? Have you tried? And suddenly, your identity is tied to your illness. When you share on social media, it becomes permanent. Future employers will see it. Potential partners will see it. People you haven't met yet will have already formed opinions. Seneca wrote, "A great fortune is a great slavery," and the same is true for health information. Once it's out there, you're enslaved to managing other people's perceptions of it. Here's the balance. If you have a condition that directly impacts others, something contagious, something that requires accommodation, share what's necessary, but keep details minimal. I have a medical situation I'm managing. I'm dealing with some health stuff. I need to be careful about certain things. That's sufficient. You don't need to share diagnoses, symptoms, treatments. You don't need to turn your health journey into a public narrative. Your medical history is yours to control, and controlling it protects your professional reputation, your social standing, and your mental health. Because the moment you stop being defined by your condition is the moment you can start transcending it. 7. Your past mistakes and regrets. Here's something they don't teach you. Confession is not always cleansing. Sometimes it's just information you gave away for free. Most men think honesty means revealing everything, including past mistakes, failures, things they regret. They think this shows growth, maturity, self-awareness, and sometimes it does. But often, it just gives people ammunition. Because not everyone wants to see your growth. Some people just want to know your weaknesses. When you share past mistakes too freely, people use them to predict your future. Well, you cheated before. You've declared bankruptcy, so didn't you get fired from? Your past becomes a life sentence. Not because you haven't changed, but because you gave people the evidence to doubt you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present," and part of that confinement is refusing to let your past define your present, not in your own mind and not in anyone else's perception. You are not who you were. But if you keep telling that story, you'll keep living in that identity. Here's what oversharing past mistakes creates. First, permanent association. People will always remember. They'll bring it up years later. They'll reference it in unrelated situations. This reminds me of when and you can never fully escape it. Second, reduced trust. Paradoxically, being too honest about past failures makes people trust you less, not more. Because they assume patterns repeat. They assume you're still that person, just better at hiding it. Third, gossip. What you share in confidence rarely stays confidential. People talk, and soon your past mistakes are common knowledge. Used to explain everything about you, so be selective about what you share. Acknowledge growth without detailing failure. I've learned a lot from past experiences. I'm not the person I was 5 years ago. We all have things we wish we'd done differently. That's enough. It shows humility without creating liability. It acknowledges humanity without surrendering power. And here's the key. The people who deserve to know your full story will earn that knowledge over time. Through proven loyalty, through demonstrated trust, through showing they can handle that information with care. Everyone else gets the edited version. Not because you're being dishonest, but because your past is not public property. It's private history, and you get to decide who has access to it. 8. Your fears and insecurities. This is where most modern men get it wrong. They've been told that vulnerability is strength, that sharing your fears creates connection, that admitting insecurity shows confidence. And there's truth in that, in the right context. But context is everything. Sharing your deepest fears with the wrong people doesn't create connection. It creates exploitation. Because not everyone you meet is a friend. Not everyone who asks is safe. And some people specifically look for vulnerabilities to exploit. When you tell people what scares you, they know exactly how to hurt you. In business, they'll apply pressure to your weak points. In relationships, they'll use your insecurities to control you. In social settings, they'll make jokes that cut deeper than they pretend. It might be subtle. It might be just joking. But they know where to press because you told them. Epictetus taught, if someone speaks badly of you, consider whether what they say is true. If it is, correct yourself. If it isn't, laugh it off. But that wisdom assumes emotional detachment most men don't have. When someone hits your known insecurity, it's not easy to laugh off. It cuts deep because it's the thing you already fear about yourself. So why give them the map? Your fears are not conversation starters. They're not bonding experiences with casual acquaintances. They're not content for social media. They're private battles you fight internally with perhaps 1 or 2 people you deeply trust. When you share your insecurities indiscriminately, First, people lose respect. They might not mean to, but they can't help it. On some level, they see you as weaker, as less capable, as someone to be careful around instead of someone to rely on. Second, you reinforce the fear. Speaking your insecurities gives them power. You're not releasing them, you're rehearsing them. You're making them more real with every retelling. Third, you invite pity. And pity is not respect. Pity is poison to masculine energy. It makes people treat you differently, walk on eggshells around you, exclude you from challenges because they think you can't handle them. Carl Jung said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And what you choose to become requires not dwelling on your fears, but facing them privately, working through them internally, and presenting to the world the man who's overcome them, not the man who's still struggling. So when someone asks about your weaknesses or fears, keep it generic. Everyone has things they're working on. I'm focused on growth in a few areas. I'm always trying to improve. That's sufficient. It acknowledges humanity without revealing specifics, and it keeps your vulnerabilities protected, which is where they should be. Number 9. Who you really respect or admire. Here's a subtle one most men miss. Never tell people which other people you admire. Never reveal your mentors, your heroes, the people you look up to, because the moment you do, you've given them leverage over you. Think about it strategically. If people know who you respect, they know how to influence you. Well, person you admire would agree with me. I heard your mentor saying, person you look up to would be disappointed. And suddenly, they're using your respect for others to manipulate your decisions. But there's a deeper reason. Admiration makes you vulnerable to disappointment. When everyone knows who your heroes are, and one of them falls from grace, makes a mistake, gets cancelled, suddenly everyone's watching your reaction. You used to love that guy. What do you think now? And you're forced to either defend someone who may be indefensible or admit you were wrong about who to respect. Marcus Aurelius kept his philosophical influences relatively private. He studied the Stoics, certainly, but he didn't publicly prostrate himself before any teacher. He took what was useful and built his own philosophy. Seneca wrote, "Choose someone whose way of life, as well as words, and whose very face as mirroring the character that lies behind it, have won your approval. Be always pointing him out to yourself, either as your guardian or as your model." Notice, pointing him out to yourself, not to everyone else. Not broadcasting who you admire, but privately using them as a reference point. When you reveal who you respect, first people will judge you by association. If your hero falls, you fall with them. If your mentor has enemies, you inherit them. If the person you admire is controversial, you become controversial. Second, people will compete for influence. They'll try to become what you admire, not because they genuinely embody those qualities, but because they know that's how to access you, and you'll end up surrounded by performers. People mirroring your stated values to gain your trust, while having no genuine alignment. Third, you limit your growth. Once you've publicly committed to admiring someone, you feel pressure to defend them, even when they're wrong. To remain loyal, even when your understanding evolves. And that loyalty can trap you in outdated thinking. So keep your admiration private. Study who you want to study. Learn from who you want to learn from. But don't broadcast it. Let people guess who influenced you. Let your character reveal your values, without you having to name-drop your way to credibility. The strong man doesn't need to cite his influences. His excellence speaks for itself. And that mystery? That's power. 10. Your long-term life plans. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, never reveal your full vision for your life. Not to friends, not to family, not to partners. Keep the complete picture to yourself, because your long-term plans are sacred, and the moment you share them, you invite interference. People will tell you all the reasons it won't work. That's unrealistic. You should be more practical. What's your backup plan? And if you're not careful, you'll internalize their doubt. You'll start building backup plans for a vision that didn't need one. You'll start hedging your bets on a bet you should have gone all in on. When you share your long-term vision, first, people will try to shape it. They'll want you to succeed in a way that makes sense to them, in a way that doesn't challenge their own choices, in a way that keeps you accessible to their needs. Why don't you do it this way instead? Have you considered thing that serves their interest? And before you know it, you're building their vision, not yours. Second, people will hold you to it inflexibly. Life changes, visions evolve. But once you've told people your plan, they'll reference it constantly. I thought you were going to. What happened to that thing you said? And you'll feel trapped by your own words, forced to either defend a pivot or pursue a path you've outgrown. Third, they'll monitor your progress and judge your pace. How's that working out? Still doing that thing? And every question carries implied judgment, implied doubt, implied disappointment. Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Notice, say to yourself, not to everyone else, not to the world. Keep your vision between you and yourself. Build it in private. Pursue it in silence. And when it manifests, let people be surprised. Let them discover what you've been building after it's already built. Seneca wrote, life is long if you know how to use it. And using it well means protecting your vision from the contamination of other people's limitations, from their fears projected onto your dreams, from their doubt disguised as concern. So when people ask about your future, be intentionally vague. I'm figuring it out, taking it one step at a time. We'll see where life takes me. This isn't dishonesty, it's protection, because your vision is too valuable to risk on people who haven't earned the right to know it. Save the full picture for yourself, and maybe one or two people who've proven through years of loyalty, support, and action that they can be trusted with your dreams. Everyone else gets the highlight reel after it's already happened. Integration, the power of strategic silence. So let's bring this together, because this isn't about being closed off or dishonest. This is about understanding that discretion is a form of power. The 10 things you should never tell anyone. 1. Your next move. Build in silence, announce in completion. 2. Your personal philosophy. Embody it, don't explain it. 3. Your good deeds. Do them privately. Let impact speak. 4. Your financial situation. Protect your assets with privacy. 5. Your family drama. Work through it privately. Present peace publicly. 6. Your health issues. Share only what's necessary. Control the narrative. 7. Your past mistakes. Acknowledge growth without detailing failure. 8. your fears and insecurities. Face them internally. Present strength externally. 9. Who you admire. Study privately. Develop independently. 10. Your long-term plans. Protect your vision from contamination. These aren't secrets. They're strategic boundaries. They're the walls you build around your most valuable assets, your plans, your peace, your power, your potential. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." And part of right thinking is understanding that not everything needs to be shared, that mystery creates respect, that restraint demonstrates strength. The modern world tells you to be an open book, to share everything, to broadcast your life, to perform your authenticity. But that's not wisdom. That's vulnerability masquerading as strength. Real strength knows what to protect. Real wisdom knows what to reveal and what to keep sacred. Real power understands that the less people know about you, the less they can use against you. This doesn't mean being closed off. It doesn't mean having no real relationships. It means being selective. It means understanding that intimacy is earned, that trust is built over time, that the right to know everything about you is a privilege, not a right. And most people haven't earned it. Seneca taught, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." And what the wise man does is protect himself, not from connection, but from exploitation, not from vulnerability, but from unnecessary exposure. So move through the world with strategic silence. Share what serves you. Withhold what protects you. And watch how your power grows, not because you're hiding, but because you're no longer giving it away. The man who controls his information controls his narrative. The man who controls his narrative controls his destiny. And that's what this is really about. Not secrecy for its own sake, but sovereignty over your own story, over your own life, over your own future. Closing. The unreadable man. There's a kind of man people can't quite figure out. They know he's capable. They can see his results, but they can't pinpoint his strategy. They know he's successful, but they don't know his numbers. They know he's connected, but they don't know his network. They know he's driven, but they don't know his destination. And that mystery? It makes him magnetic. Because humans are drawn to what they can't fully understand. We try to solve puzzles, and the man who reveals nothing becomes the puzzle everyone wants to solve. Marcus Aurelius, despite writing thousands of words in his Meditations, remained largely unknowable to his contemporaries. They saw his actions, his decisions, his leadership, but his inner world remained private. And that privacy created authority, because authority requires distance. You can't be both completely accessible and deeply respected. You can't be both an open book and a powerful presence. There's something about the unknown that commands attention, that generates respect, that creates space for others to project their hopes onto you instead of their judgments. So if you've been living as an open book, if you've been sharing everything with everyone, if you've been wondering why people don't respect you the way you thought they would, start closing some chapters. Start keeping some things to yourself. Start building walls around what matters most. Not to hide from the world, but to protect what you're building. Epictetus left us with this. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And how you react starts with what you reveal, with what you protect, with what you keep sacred. So be the man who knows when to speak and when to stay silent. Be the man who shares strategically, not impulsively. Be the man who understands that some things are too valuable to give away. And let your results speak louder than your words ever could. Stay focused, stay grounded, and remember, the quiet work you do today is shaping the strength they'll never see coming. Let them wonder about you. Let them guess your strategy. Let them try to figure you out while you keep building in silence. Because the man they can't read is the man they can't predict. And the man they can't predict is the man they can't defeat.